let's get to tonight. What a game, man. I'm psyched for you, psyched for the whole Prime Video crew. Last week was just dynamite. Now here's a great follow-up game between two more division opponents, Washington and Philadelphia. What happened in that Eagles bye week that changed things? What's your 2 cents there?
So I think it's a couple things. I think Nick Sirianni knew with two new coordinators. There was some leadership turnover too in the locker room with Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey gone. Those are two guys that were very, very important to everything that has been built there, over the last decade plus. And so, I know one thing that Nick wanted them to do, both as units and as position groups, was reflect on the first month of the season. And I think a lot of those guys took that to heart, and that's across the board. Offense, defense, they had new coordinators they were adjusting to, and Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. And it wasn't just on the players, it was on the coaches too. Hey, take a hard look at what we're doing here and how can we do X, Y, and Z better. And I think if you want to drill down on it in particular with, what Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore were able to do. I mean, they talked every day during the bye and they bounced stuff off each other. And if you look and you take a close look at it, it's not just the 5 wins in a row since the 2-2 start. It's also Jalen's individual performance, in that his passer rating was in the 80s in each of his first 4 games. And since then, it's been 115 or better in each of the last 5 games. I mean, that's a market improvement, no matter how you look at that quarterback rating stat. And, part of it, of course, is getting healthier. Getting A.J. Brown back's obviously going to be a big deal. But, I do think a lot of progress was made during that bye week. Here's the other thing. I do think the Eagles view themselves as one of these franchises that uses the preseason or uses the first month of the season in this era, the way the CBA is set up, as almost an extended preseason. They don't play their guys a lot in the preseason games. And, they feel like they're strong enough from a roster standpoint, where, they can work the kinks out early in the regular season. And I think that was part of what happened over the first month as well.
How about that? And then the Commanders, brother. I mean,
it's like a new franchise, right?
They totally are, man. You speak to a Commanders fan, a Washington football team fan, right? And they're just looking around. They're thinking they're going to wake up and Dan Snyder's going to wind up in the owner's suite again, and they'll be just like, what, that they're not in Kansas anymore. You know what I mean? And you talk to them, and they're like, I can't believe Jayden Daniels and the way that Dan Quinn's coaching, they can't believe it. And we had Terry McLaurin on, and I know you know him, and obviously you've been following his career since he stepped out of high school. And I said to him after that catch against Joe Burrow to beat against the Bengals to beat the Bengals on that Monday night in week 3, where instead of settling for a field goal, Jayden Daniels took one in the chops and found McLaurin in the end zone and basically said, drive home safely. I said to him, you look like a guy who's like, all right, I got my guy. I finally got my guy, with all due respect to the other guys that he's had. He didn't deny it. I mean, it's just 100% what's going on right now. But now you got to sit here and wonder, I mean, is there a rookie wall? What is going on for the final stretch here? Can they come up with that dub tonight, which would be huge, obviously.
So, I love the stories you hear about Jayden. I really love them, right? So I'll give you a couple.
Please.
So there was that week they were in Arizona, right? And if you guys remember, I think it was between the Monday night game in week 3. Week 2, and then and then they played the Cardinals the following Sunday, right?
Well, that game against Cincinnati was that week 3 Monday night. Then they went to Arizona and came home for Cleveland. That's what happened.
Right. So they were in Arizona for that whole week, and you hear Dan Quinn told me he would walk down the hallway at the hotel they were staying at there in Arizona, and they have the makeshift meeting rooms and the conference rooms in the hotel. And he said he'd walk out of his office there, and at 9 p.m. he'd walk by the quarterback room and the lights on, and Jayden Daniels is still in there. He's habitually at the facility at 5:30 a.m. Anybody who knows Cliff Kingsbury knows he's an early riser. Well, Jayden's there with him, and they're getting time working sort of off the books on stuff to make him better. He does the virtual reality stuff. That's something they're very big on at LSU. He carried that right into the pros with him. it's just, like every little thing you hear about him is like, this kid does it the right way, and this kid is like really focused on becoming the best football player he possibly can be. And I think that's how he's earned the respect of so many people in that locker room. And I think it's also the maturity, Rich, of a guy who went through a lot in college, was at two different colleges, started 55 games, was a multi-year starter at both schools, went through, everything that happened at Arizona State with the NCAA investigation and everything else. And if he had come out after 3 years, and maybe he would have gone undrafted, goes to LSU, has to reset, and then lights the world on fire over 2 seasons there. So he's a kid who's seen a lot and been through a lot. And I think there's a maturity to the way that he conducts himself because of it. And I think it shows up in like knowing what it takes now, having an understanding of what it takes. And you hear little things too, like little things like his eye discipline in the first game wasn't great. Like he played really well, but he was pretty quick to have his eyes down and then look to run. Well, like then in week 2, he worked on that and the light came on for him in week 3. It's like, oh, wow, like when I keep my eyes downfield, I'm really opening opportunities for my receivers. And so, like there's just little stories you hear about the progress he's making and the amount of work he's putting in. They couldn't be happier with him. And if you've been around him at all, and I've just spent a little time around him, like just how smooth and cool he is and how natural he is kind of in his element, on a football field and a locker room, all of that, like there's reason to be really, really excited about where he's at.
I love it for Commanders fans, that's for sure. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern for free.